Hello and welcome to the Football Hipsters podcast, the Satchel edition. Back in the hot seat this evening, I am your host, Kris. Apologies, we missed our last episode of the Satchel because that corresponded with my illness, unfortunately. But we're back just in time to draw a line under the Champions League and Europa League group stages. We know the teams that are going through, and every game has been played apart from one. More on that later. I'm joined by a man who hasn't been on for a little while. Actually, it seems like forever. It's my cohort, Mr. John Welsh. Welcome back, sir.
Good evening.
It's been a while since we've done one of these. Just me and thee, hasn't it?
It has been a little while, yeah.
Yeah,
well,
we've sort of we've been on hiatus with working, and we've missed each other like ships in the night. But,
we've still been talking on plenty of other platforms, obviously.
Yes, yeah. We haven't not spoken or anything. It's not that bad. We're going to be joined by a guest of ours later on. Ross is going to come on and probably won't be a happy chap, but again, we'll get to that when we get to it. We'll start with the Champions League though, because we're going to rather than run through the games in order of the days they're played, we're going to run through the groups and give you a little bit of insight into the qualifiers, who's done what, who's gone where, who's good, who's not, etc. So let's start all the way back at Group A. This is not a fix, I promise, but obviously we have to start with Arsenal and Paris Saint-Germain, who are the two qualifiers from Group A. Arsenal won the group, John. I was quite closely following PSG for the benefit of Arsenal supporting colleagues of ours, whilst keeping an eye on Arsenal at the same time. Now, you watched the Arsenal game more intently, so good performance from Arsenal. Was it sort of merited with all the fanfare that went with it, or was there a little bit of a smidge of a Basel side that are not very good?
I don't think the Basel side they're not as good as they have been in previous years. I think that's fair to say, and they perhaps didn't turn up so much on the night. However, having said that, obviously we are a little bit biased, but Arsenal were really, really good on the evening, and the way they passed the ball around and the pace that they played it at was just too much for Basel. And and I think it was a case of most Arsenal fans will probably win this game, not being too big-headed, but in the long run it probably won't matter, because I think everyone was expecting a different result in the PSG Ludogorets game. So I think Arsenal fans were kind of half watching it and thinking, oh, okay, second in the group, hopefully we got lucky in the draw. But obviously that wasn't what happened.
No, it wasn't a hat-trick for Lucas Perez in that game, which will do him the world of good. But while that was going on in Switzerland, PSG drawing at home to Ludogorets. Now, we both watched Ludogorets at the Emirates, and we saw how good they could be in the away leg, where Arsenal, of course, people forget, were 2-0 down at the time on match day 5, and Arsenal coming back to win it. Match day 4, I should say. But Ludogorets pulling out probably the performance of the group, taking a point off PSG. As you said, I don't think anyone really expected it. Do you think this is more about PSG kind of still not being at that elite level, or do you think it's more about how a team like Ludogorets has improved, because they're into the Europa League now as a result of that draw in Paris?
Ludogorets were definitely better than I think people gave them credit for, but I still think that PSG team had enough to go out and beat them. You saw, if anyone who watched Ludogorets at any point during this competition, they were obviously a threat going forwards, and they could move the ball very quick, and had some pacey players, but I don't think defensively they were particularly strong. But PSG on the night, obviously only saw highlights of it, they just looked so poor at the back, and it seemed more than anything like a lack of concentration from the players on the pitch for PSG, and a kind of malaise from the performance they put in Liga at the weekend as well. It's sort of carried on, which I didn't really expect. I thought after a disappointing performance in Liga, that they'd bounce back. But yeah, they've essentially thrown away the group because it was in their own hands, and I'd imagine some of their fans are not very happy with it at all.
No, lots of discontent in France, I can tell you, having read and watched various different bits and bobs and had a few things translated for me. All is not well in Paris, and one Angel Di Maria is apparently rumoured to be very unhappy as well. So we shall keep an eye on that story. But nevertheless, PSG and Arsenal both qualify. As we say, Ludogorets are into the Europa League. Basel, to quote Bullseye, go home with nothing. On to Group B then, Napoli. Let's focus on them because you'll know a fair bit about them being from your nation of choice to watch your football. So they go through as group winners on 11 points. Does it represent not a surprise because you're probably looking on paper they were the favourites for the group, but when they lost Milik due to injury, they've been good recently in Serie A, but they had that sort of sticky spell, didn't they, where they couldn't quite get results together. Winning the group's got to be job done for them, really, hasn't it? With another victory to finish off this group stage with a 2-1 win in Benfica.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very good result on the night. Obviously, it gives them the group, but I think the disappointing thing for Napoli will be that they didn't win the group earlier. They had plenty of chances to, and they just didn't put in the performances. Obviously, we brought up Milik a number of times on the main pod and talk about how big a loss he has been for Napoli, but they still have scored goals. They haven't been as prolific, but defensively is where they've lost a bit, and I'm trying to remember the journalist now. Paolo Berdini, was talking about on Twitter how Albiol at the back had been a really big loss for him. And I didn't realise how many games he'd actually missed. And of all the games they'd lost, I think he was missing in every single one, or all but one of them. And just having that sort of bit of experience at the back, especially in European competition, obviously he's been around for a long time, has really helped them, and apparently really helped in this game as well. So I think as much as they do miss a little bit up front with Milik not being there, I think defensively they've had some issues as well. So him coming back in the team has been a real help. And a young man who I'm sure we'll probably talk about more as the season goes on, Amadou Diawara, has come into the team and started playing more regularly. He really does look a superb talent, and I'm sure he's someone we'll be talking about for a long time.
Yeah, he's he does look a beast, doesn't he, for the age as well, and yeah, he does look like a player to keep an eye on. Maybe might make a certain podcast appearance at some point. Into the next stage, Napoli go as group winners then, and also that Albiol point you made, the link with Pepe Reina, the Spanish link there. I think that's quite a big thing as well. So yeah, very, very important. But they go through as group winners on 11 points. They're joined by Benfica, who, despite that loss, go through on 8 points, which we knew going into this set of fixtures. Besiktas, though, they had a chance. They could have leapfrogged Benfica, but they got taken completely to pieces by Dynamo Kiev, 6-0, albeit Andreas Beck was sent off in 29 minutes for a very disputed penalty at the time. Vincent Abubakar, former Lorient man actually, was sent off on 56 for 2 bookings, so you probably think that had a bit of a say on the scoreline, but that's a hell of a result, isn't it, for Kiev? And I think it was the Besiktas goalkeeper. Did you see him mid-game, completely in tears? Did you see that?
Yeah, it's kind of a running sort of joke. Like Turkish teams just don't travel well. But this is a whole new level of that. Kiev are decent at home, and they've got some good players. Obviously, Yarmolenko being sort of the standout, but you don't expect 6-0 at any point really in the Champions League. Really, really poor performance from Besiktas, and great for Kiev to be able to score that many goals. I think that's their record home result in Europe. But yeah, Besiktas, that is just terrible. I can't remember seeing a Champions League more one-sided game. To be honest, really, really poor.
Yeah, agreed. And Dynamo Kiev exit Europe, but with a bang, and Besiktas at least get the consolation of the Europa League, which they'll certainly want to improve their away record in that one. Moving on to Group C then. Not a lot to report in this one. It was all done and dusted before the final games. Barcelona and Manchester City, the 2 qualifiers. Barcelona winning the group by 6 clear points, with a final victory of the group stage. Don't really want to talk about it too much, I would guess, but 4-0. Poor old Borussia Mönchengladbach, an Arda Turan hat-trick. It's not something you see every day. Gladbach, are you happy to be in the Europa League? Because they do just about get that place after Celtic couldn't get the result they needed. So are you sort of happy with that consolation prize?
Yeah, it's more our level. At the moment, Gladbach are in that horrible position of being a club who are overachieving to a certain amount, just because we don't have as much money as other teams in Germany. So getting the Champions League spot's really good because it gets extra money into the team and into the club. But then realistically, we want to drop into the Europa League because we can go further in that competition. You don't earn as much money, but long-term revenue, it all helps to slowly improve the club. I'd imagine with the league campaign we're having as well, it's just easier because being in the Champions League week in, week out, getting humiliated at times by certain teams, it's not going to do anything for morale. And, let's be honest, it is Barcelona, and they're a class above most teams, but they're quite a few classes above Gladbach at the moment. So it doesn't surprise me, the result. Even the sort of the English Gladbach Twitter account was having some fun with the scoreline and just sort of saying, please be gentle with us and things like that. And when it was at 3-0 and saying, oh, come on, that's enough. So yeah, no big surprise, and I think everyone expected Barca to top the group. The excitement of this group was seeing obviously what Pep would do against Barcelona with his Man City team, and those two games actually were probably the most interesting to watch in the group. But yeah, I think everyone had Barca down to win this group.
Yeah, agreed. And fair play to Celtic as well, who went away to Manchester City, albeit an understrength City side, and 2 goals in the first 10 minutes proved to be the only 2. Patrick Roberts scoring against his parent club on loan, and Kelechi Iheanacho with the equaliser. So Manchester City going through in second spot, and you wonder if that will cost them. But as you say, in a group with Barcelona, they'll probably be happy enough to get through. 2 heavyweights going through in Group D, Atletico Madrid and Bayern Munich. All that was remaining to be seen was who would win the group, and it is Atletico Madrid, who it's sort of strange this season, not particularly brilliant in La Liga, but look pretty menacing in the Champions League. I wonder if that's where the focus. Bayern actually won the game on the night. Robert Lewandowski winner on 28 minutes, but that was that for the group phase, and Bayern go through second. We'll touch on their passage into the next phase in a minute, because they could draw a certain Northumberland side we're all panicking about, and probably the story of that group, Rostov, who have qualified for the Europa League at the expense of PSV. I don't know what odds you would have got on this pre-game, but Rostov went to PSV, got a 0-0 draw, and secured Europa League football. It's a huge achievement, isn't it, for a side who nobody, if they're honest, had really heard much about before this season.
Yeah, it's always hard to judge with these sort of teams. It's like when we were talking about Ludogorets. They're unknown quantities to the majority of, well, to us anyway, and to the majority of the listeners, I'm sure, as well. Because unless you live in those countries and you watch them regularly, you don't know how they can perform. And we've not seen many of the players, don't know a lot about them. So you immediately go with, oh, okay, well, you're not, Atletico and Bayern are obviously going to be the top 2 teams in the group, whichever way around. And, well, everyone knows PSV, they're a known quantity, so you would assume because they have regular European competition and whatever, they'll probably finish third. So it might not be that much of a surprise if you're a Rostov fan, I guess. But to us, it certainly is. And I suppose what it means is that the teams from the Netherlands and from Belgium and those sort of countries that traditionally are the ones that would go in the third place spot in groups, that kind of thing, might have to up their game now, because there are these teams like Rostov. We had Astana a few seasons back, Ludogorets this season, doing really well in these competitions, and being a bit of an unknown quantity. So it's good for them, and hopefully we see more of them as well, because then it's new exciting talent that a lot of us have never seen before.
Yeah, agreed. And as you say, it's a new name, which is always quite nice and fluffy. And they actually got through on a -6 goal difference. We'll come on to a team that have amazingly beaten that to get into the Europa League in just a second. But before we go there, we'll go to Group E, where I know I'm a little bit biased, only a little bit, but Monaco qualifies as the group winners of Group E with 11 points. They lost with a very sort of understrength side, 3-0 to Leverkusen in the final game. Leverkusen, of course, occupying the second spot in that group. Just a quick word on Monaco. I don't know if you've seen much of them, but for me, they're one of the most entertaining sides in Europe right now. Maybe a dark horse for you, and I guess getting further than PSG will be their aim. But do you think they could surprise a few in this next phase?
Maybe they get past the next round. I can't see him past that. I think when they get against, drawn against a Barca or a Bayern or someone like that, then it's going to be a real test for them. I think, like you said, they're great to watch and they're exciting. They've got lots of very young talent. We talked about Lamar on the pod during the week as well, and his great goal he got at the weekend, and how many goals they're scoring in Liga. So they're great to watch. This was the one group that was no one really had a clue on who was going to finish where, because they all seemed approximately level, sort of ability-wise and squad-wise of players. Leverkusen have had an up and down season. Spurs obviously did so well in the league last year, and starting to become more regular in Europe as well when they've got a decent squad. Monaco obviously lots of money in the past, but now we've got a young team. CSK, I suppose, were the only sort of weaker side, but it's always difficult going to play away in Russia. So I really didn't know who was going to go through with this group. Monaco have been the most consistent side throughout their league campaign, so that's not so much of a surprise. But I suppose the big one for me was that Spurs couldn't take the second spot in the group, and that Leverkusen got it, because Leverkusen have been so in and out of form, hit and miss. And I think Tottenham have been a bit more consistent, so I think they'll be disappointed. Obviously difficult playing in Wembley. We know that as Arsenal fans, how much that actually does cause issues. And I think it definitely did have an effect on them in their campaign.
Yeah, agreed. And here's the $1 million question. Tottenham go through to the Europa League with a 3-1 victory over poor old Igor Akinfeyev's clean sheet record and CSK Moscow. The run continues. But yeah, they go through to the Europa League. Here's the $1 million question. Will they be happy to be in the Europa League again, or would they almost have wished they'd have lost? Because they were behind in that game, and I wondered if it might have been all a big conspiracy to stay out of the competition. But they're in it, so do they try and win it now, or do you think it'll be all experiments?
It sounds weird to say. I think it depends on the draw. If they get lucky and get drawn against teams where they don't have to travel thousands of miles round trip, then there's no reason why you don't go for it. It's a trophy, it's a realistic trophy they can win. It's an avenue to get back into the Champions League. I think securing a spot for the Champions League in the Premier League this year is going to be really difficult, not just for them, but for all the teams in the league. So it might be their best chance of getting back into the competition. If you get drawn against a team, we just talked about Astana, someone like that, and you've got to do a 2,000 plus round trip, it really starts to hurt your league campaign. If you get drawn against a team in France, it's a lot easier. It's like a few hours flight and then straight back home again, and it's easy to get ready for the weekend. So I think that travel time really will be dependent on how they approach it.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I'm not sure how Spurs fans really feel about being in the Europa League, but nevertheless, it's another competition and, of course, another avenue into the Champions League, which you've got to think both them and Manchester United will look at and think, well, if we can get in via that route, that's a good way of winning a tournament. So we shall see. Obviously, CSK Moscow have exited. And into Group F we go. Borussia Dortmund and Real Madrid. 2 sets of 2-2s. Say that when you've had a few. 2-2 in the Bernabeu. Marco Reus getting the late equaliser. Real Madrid were 2-0 up in this game. Karim Benzema with a double. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang getting one back, and then Reus with the 88th minute equaliser. Quick question on this game. Do you think Aubameyang might be back at the Bernabeu in a different shirt next season?
You're going to upset Drew, aren't you? It wouldn't surprise me. He's talked about it plenty of times, wanting to play for Madrid. And I think, was it his grandmother he promised he'd go and play in Spain, and Real Madrid was the team. So, he seems a right fit for that sort of club. Whether there's a certain Premier League team that might have one eye on him as well and can offer him, I don't know whether they can offer him more money or not, but they might be able to. They might have something to say about it. But great for Dortmund. Real Madrid, I think, will be kicking themselves. I don't think they're going to be too fussed about who they draw, because they have the expectation of being able to beat anyone. It's the sort of club they are. But they will look back to the game against Legia, where they drew 3-3, as where they slipped up in the group and not topped it.
Agreed, yeah, and we'll of course all be on tenterhooks when Aubameyang is presented as a Watford player. Legia Warsaw, you mentioned, they qualified for the Europa League in third spot, with a minus 15 goal difference. Now that's seriously impressive. They scored 9 goals, conceded 24 in 6 games, but have made the Europa League. I don't know about you, but I fancy £2 on them to win the Europa League because that kind of form. I mean, that's just nuts, isn't it? And they've gone through at the expense of Sporting Lisbon. So,
it's a little unfair because I think they managed to play Dortmund, but both times when Dortmund just went, oh, let's play schoolboy football. The sort of stuff where you see one team of older players just bully the other side. And I think Dortmund scored 14 goals in total against them in 2 games, so that's difficult.
Yeah, you can say that again. And Sporting Lisbon, I think, fair to say, or Sporting Club do Portugal, whichever you prefer, fair to say they're sort of going through a bit of a kind of transition. Particularly league form has not been brilliant this season either, and yeah, I think they're going to rebuild another side and look to go again. Lots of players are possibly on the move from there. So a little bit of turmoil going on in Portugal. Speaking of turmoil, that brings us to Group G, where Leicester City have qualified. They had the magnificent record in the first 5 games, and then they went to Porto. Now, I appreciate fully they played a scratch side. I think Ben Hamer was in goal, the third choice goalkeeper. I think from memory, his last game, or his last professional game, was on loan. I'm sure it was at Bristol City. He certainly hasn't played for Leicester. So he was in goal. They played Wesolowski, who looks like a bouncer. He looks like Zangief from Street Fighter.
Oh, yes, yeah.
He played at centre-back. I think Jeff Schlupp played. I think he was substituted, actually. It was a scratch side, let's put it that way. But to lose 5-0 against a Porto side who hadn't scored in, I think it was 3 matches until stoppage time last week against Braga, things are a bit worrying, surely, for Ranieri now, because I don't know about you, but it strikes me as a lot of those players who signed big contracts are just not performing.
Yeah, I think you can look at the team selection. Going away to Porto is always difficult, and I think, Leicester have done amazing in this competition. Yes, they got a favourable group, that's true, but Porto are Champions League regulars. Club Bruges are regulars. Copenhagen as well. European experience. So to top the group and to only lose 1 game is a fantastic performance. Obviously, they'll be very disappointed with the result, but because of their league form and the way they've been struggling, I think Ranieri will just say, look, we got through the group. Not only that, we topped the group. We can forget about the Champions League and ignore it now for a little while and just concentrate on our league form and be happy with that. And I think, if you ask most Leicester fans, they'll just be completely over the moon. They're probably all wanting to draw Real Madrid as well. Just, they probably don't even care whether they get through the next round. Just to be able to say, oh yeah, Real Madrid are coming to play at our place. It must be amazing to be a Leicester fan at the moment still.
Yeah, true, and we'll see who they draw. That Porto record, by the way, 4 successive 0-0 draws until a 95th minute winner against Sporting Braga last weekend, and then score 5 against Leicester. It's weird how it happens, isn't it? Just really.
Yeah, I mean, but you look at that Porto side; they definitely weren't messing about. That is a really good, strong team they put out.
Some of their players as well, Ottavino, Diego Jota. Young striker who's being touted all over the place at the moment, Andre Silva. There's just so many good players in that Porto side, and I don't think all of them will be there even as early as January for me. I think a few of those will be sold on because Porto are skint, but this money will come in handy for them as they qualify as the 2nd place team. And going into the Europa League, Copenhagen, who got the better of Bruges, who, fair to say, didn't have the greatest campaign. Played 6, lost 6, scored twice, conceded 14. I think they'll be quite glad to go back to the Belgian League and continue on their merry way. Final group, another side that you can have a look at and decide that I can have a look at in this group, so that's good fun. Juventus, first of all. Never really felt like they were ever at their top level in this group, but they did enough to win it fairly comfortably. 14 points from the 6 games played. Impressive against Dynamo Zagreb, and a goal for a man that you think has quite a big future, I think I'm right in saying.
Yeah, they did play very well. Regani getting a goal in that game. Higuain as well, who hadn't scored for a while. Very good goal from him. I think the expected result, the big result for Juventus throughout this campaign was the away win against Sevilla, which teams don't often do. I think that really basically secured them top of the group. But like you said, they hadn't really got out of second gear. I don't think they've stretched themselves too much. And we've been talking about on the pod how, up until the Atalanta performance, they haven't played that well this season, but they're still getting results. I'm not sure they've got quite enough for the Champions League to win it. I don't know. It depends what sort of form Dybala comes back in when he's back from his injury. He's back in training now. And obviously they've had to reshuffle their defence and go to a back four rather than the back three. If they can keep that adaptation and defending as well as they have been since the last few games where they've changed to that system, then maybe they're sort of the dark horse. I certainly wouldn't want to play them at the moment because if Higuain's not scoring and Regani's not scoring from set pieces, then there's this old bloke called Mandzukic who Bayern Munich fans probably still take the mickey out of, but you don't often know where the back of the net is.
Yeah, lots of weapons, I must admit. As a Gooner, certainly not a side I want. I don't want anywhere near Juventus, thank you very much. So I'm quite glad that they won that group in the end. And they're joined by Sevilla, who will, of course, be disappointed to not be able to continue to defend the Europa League ground for 4 successive seasons, but I'm sure they'll be happy to stay in the Champions League. And they squeaked it. Well, I say squeaked it. They, I can't say that, can I? They were fairly good overall in this group and probably deserved it. In the final game of the shootout was with Lyon. This was probably one of the few groups that had something riding on the last game, and I watched this one and Lyon just didn't do enough. A lot of criticism coming Alexandre Lacazette's way, which I think is a little harsh, given the fact he had pretty much no service the whole night. Just didn't do enough. Vitolo hitting the post for Sevilla as well, who were tactically very well set up, came really to play for the draw and pretty much were comfortable for long periods. There was 2 efforts that went close through Mathieu Valbuena, but ultimately Lyon go into the Europa League. Sevilla, another side, much like we said about Monaco, on their day can beat anyone, but on their day can also get taken apart away from home. Do you foresee them going any deeper than the next round of this stage?
It's possible. They're very experienced in Europe. They know how to get results, and they are particularly difficult to play against when they're at home. I think the away leg is where they'll suffer. So, I don't think anyone will particularly fancy playing them. So if they get a favourable draw, then maybe quarterfinals, but I don't see much past that.
No, fair play. And I think Lyon will be, I wouldn't say happy, but I think they'll take the Europa League, and they're probably one of the sides that people will want to avoid, especially going to the Stade Lumière. So we shall see how they progress in that competition, where they're joined by a couple of other French sides, which we'll come on to in a second. Dynamo Zagreb exit the competition, played 6, lost 6, scored 0, conceded 15. So another side that I think will be quite happy to drift back into their league and forget all about the Champions League for another season, and concentrate on getting back into it next year, where probably the same thing will happen again. But you never know. So they have gone out. Before we move on to the Europa League, we'll just look at the top scorers list at the moment. Some bloke called Messi is top of the charts. That's a big surprise. 10 goals. No, 10 goals already in this season's competition. Edinson Cavani rather brilliantly has 6. Robert Lewandowski 5. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Karim Benzema, Riyad Mahrez, Dries Mertens, Mesut Ozil, Arda Turan, and Andre Silva all on 4. So some big names in that list. And on the assists chart, Neymar has 7. Ousmane Dembele has 5 for Dortmund. Real Madrid's Cristiano Ronaldo has 4. Surprisingly, Augustinsson of Copenhagen has 3, as does Fauzi Goulam of Napoli. Mesut Ozil, surprise. Alexis Sanchez also has 3, and then the likes of Dani Alves, Jonathan Cafu, Dani Carvajal, all on that list as well with 2, as is Antoine Griezmann. So there we go. They are the list of teams going through. Let's just recap that list, shall we? Because the draw takes place in Zion, isn't it? On Monday in Switzerland.
Neon.
Sorry,
Neon, that's it. Yeah.
Zion. It's in the Matrix, isn't it? But so yes, the draw takes place in Switzerland on the Monday. So just go through that list of teams for us once again.
Yep, sure. So the group winners were Arsenal, Atletico Madrid, Barcelona, Borussia Dortmund, Juventus, Leicester City, Monaco and Napoli. And the runners-up were Bayern Munich, Benfica, Bayer Leverkusen, Manchester City, Paris Saint-Germain, Porto, Real Madrid and Sevilla. So when the draw is done, you cannot face someone from your own association. So Arsenal could not play Man City, for example. A German team can't play a German team, etc., etc. And you also can't be drawn against someone who was in your group. That is the only rulings for it. So I think you can work it out statistically that there are teams that you are slightly more likely to draw than others, and there are some that obviously you cannot draw at all. But yeah, obviously, what you look at is in the runners-up section, the fact that you've got Bayern Munich, Benfica, Man City, and PSG and Real Madrid. Winning the group these days isn't perhaps as favourable as it was in the past.
No, fair point. And I'm going to put it on record on this podcast right now. I think Arsenal are going to draw by Leverkusen. So
I want Real Madrid personally.
Yeah, I just strangely I tweeted last night and said I'm not actually that afraid of either Bayern or Real Madrid.
That is them as they're playing currly. I will state it that way,
yes,
though, because by the time it comes around to when the competition starts again, they'll probably be playing much better.
Could be very different. Yeah, agreed. And at the end of the day, if you want to be in this competition, you've got to play some decent sides. So
should we bring our guest in? Because I'd like to ask him a quick question on the Champions League as well. Actually,
I think we should. Yes. Hopefully he's taken the noose off from around the neck. Mr. Ross Bramble, good evening, sir.
Good evening to you.
How are you feeling? We'll go into it in a minute, but a little bit down at the moment?
A little bit down. Yeah, that was unpleasant. Excuse me. That was very, very unpleasant, and that's a very tough one, but we'll dissect it in a minute.
Yes. Okay. So, John, you have a question for us. What is your question?
Yeah, I just wondered. I know obviously it's early days and you've got a January transfer window and all that kind of exciting things, but who was Ross's sort of early pick for Champions League winner if he had to go with one now from what he'd seen?
Cool. It's tough because I don't think any of the favourites for it have really left third gear yet. I am in the camp that says Arsenal don't have to fear anyone, but I am also in the camp that says Barcelona are probably the best of the bunch. So I would find it cruel to pick either one, frankly. But if I could pick two, then Barca or Arsenal, because I don't think there's any other real standouts so far. There's no one club that I've thought, wow, they've done really well so far. But I think the best of the bunch have probably been Arsenal and Barcelona.
Wow.
I concur with that, actually, along with Monaco, of course, because there's a lot of love in Monaco. But no, I think Ross is right. And the one thing that Arsenal probably have in their favour is the style they play with. And the one thing Barcelona have in their favour is that they seem to be able to turn it on at will when it's required. So yeah, I agree.
Suarez, Messi and Neymar.
Yeah, it helps, doesn't it? Yeah, it's not a bad front three, that. Of course, again, a lot can happen between now and is it February that the games get started up again. So, a couple of key injuries to either of those sides, or as you say, a team like a Bayern finding their form, and all could change. So, yeah, be very interesting to see what the winter brings. And of course, all of Europe apart from England will have a winter break to deal with as well. So, plenty to go on between then, but we can put it off no longer, Ross. Let's come across to tonight's action. Recording this on Thursday, the 8th of December, of course, and we've just seen the end of all of the games bar one of the Europa League. We'll touch on that one in a minute, but let's start at St Mary's then, Ross, because you were there this evening. A 1-1 draw with Hapoel Beersheva. I jinxed this clearly because I spoke to you earlier on and I said I thought you'd go through comfortably, scoring a couple of goals in the process. 3, in fact, I said. I couldn't be more wrong. When you were in the stadium, when you were watching this game, did you kind of sit there going, I know what's coming? Because watching it, I could see what was coming myself.
Yeah, unfortunately. And when you have the benefit of hindsight, it kind of felt like everything was off kilt tonight. St Mary's was daubed with a load of flags on everyone's chair. Unfortunately, we had a fog drift through, so the entire stadium was damp and the flags were drenched and soggy and horrible. If you tried to wave one of them, they just came straight off the stick. It was hideous. Then the Hapoel fans mistook the whistle for the minute silence for the Chapecoense plane crash. They mistook that as the end of the minute silence rather than the start, so they cheered in the middle of it. And then you start the game, and Redmond has just the worst game I think I've ever seen him have in a Saints shirt or a Norwich shirt. There's a penalty shout. Something is given as a free kick, but inside the stadium, everyone thinks it's a penalty. So the whole stadium's gone up cheering, thinking we just got a penalty. in the first 20 minutes or so, and the referee's giving it as a free kick, and no one can understand where it's come from or why we thought it was a penalty in the first place. All of it just felt very off. And then the longer it went on, the more you kind of felt like neither side really knew what they were after from this game, because Hapoel looked like they were happy with 0-0, even though that would have taken them out. Southampton were kind of caught between two minds of whether they should stick for 0-0 or whether they should go for the jugular. And in the end, it's just a load of mistakes, a load of poor passing, a load of poor finishing, an error from Romeu. Suddenly we're 1-0 down from a long range shot. And only then do we look like we're up for it. So it's less disappointing that we're out. It's more disappointing that all this week it's been, we're going to give everything we've got. We want to make sure we're still in this competition after Christmas. We want to make sure that we're still progressing as a football club in the Europa League. And the performance I saw tonight was well.
Yeah, it's I can enlighten you on the penalty call. It was an offside against Charlie Austin, but the referee sort of, the way he pointed towards the area almost suggested he'd given the penalty, and I think that's probably where the confusion came in. But yeah, it was given for an offside. And you're right. I suppose from Saints' point of view now, they've got a big Premier League game at the weekend, and I guess it's get back on the horse as quickly as possible, because these sort of results, I mean, that they can skew a season, can't they? They can sort of take you completely off kilter. So from your point of view now, do you just look at this as a lesson learned, valuable experience, and get back to the Premier League and try and finish back in those spots again?
It's experience, but it's not a lesson learned, because this has been a problem since Pochettino. We just can't put the ball in the back of the net. Every year we finish with 10, 15 goals less than we should have. It's a continual problem. We just can't seem to fix it. And the backlash from the fans tonight has been vile. Everyone wants Puel out. It's vitriolic how quickly everyone's turned on him, because it was so poor tonight. And we all thought that after the Palace game on the weekend, we'd get a reaction. And we only got a reaction from Van Dijk and Davis and Long. Those are the three that really looked like they were after it tonight. And the fans have completely turned on Puel tonight. Hopefully that will dim down tomorrow when everyone's slept on it. But no, there's no lessons learned. It just feels like we've done this so many times. I mean, you look at the Europa League campaign, we had the exact same kind of performance at Sparta Prague, exact same kind of performance away at Inter Milan, where we knew what we needed, controlled the ball, controlled the game, but our final ball was terrible, and we get punished by a moment's stupidity at the back, which is what Romeu's deflection was today. It's what the Martinez slip or whatever it was against Prague cost us, and defending for Candrovas at the San Siro. It seems to be a pattern that's repeating itself, and I think fans are getting very quickly fed up with it. And something needs to change, whether that's personnel up front. Obviously, we've now got Charlie Austin. It looks like he's dislocated his shoulder tonight. Hopefully that's not going to keep him out for too long, because we need him back. He's the only one in the team that scores goals aside from Van Dijk. So many problems developing and have been developing. I think tonight has shone a light on it. And like I say, the backlash from the fans tonight has been hideous, even inside the stadium. Before I got on social media, where we all know it's 10 times worse, before I was even out, it was awful. A lot of our angry fans tonight. I can understand some of it, but yeah, hopefully it's majorly just disappointing.
Yeah, it is a real downside, and I think obviously I like Claude Puel a lot. I think he got it horribly wrong tonight. I thought the tactics were just not right, and as you say, Nathan Redmond getting the bird from the fans, that came across on TV very clearly, and it was just a night of too many poor performances. The one thing I would say is that every week that goes past, the more money you're going to get for Virgil van Dijk. Not just the goal, but he's a proper leader. His interview after the game was very blunt and honest. If you haven't seen that, it's well worth a look. Where he basically just comes out and says, it's not good enough. We were punished. We didn't deal with the ball. We have to get rid of the ball in those sort of positions. And he just kept saying we're completely disappointed and we don't know what to say. And he struck me as a man who was livid. So teacups I think would have been thrown. But nevertheless, it's been emotional. But we'll move on to some other games and piece our way through it. Should we talk about Man United next, seeing as we're on the English theme? Joe, I know you didn't see this game, but a 2-0 victory for Jose Mourinho's men against Zorya. 2-0. Henrik Mkhitaryan back in the side, seems to be back in favour. A glimpse of the Dortmund Mkhitaryan tonight. Lovely goal. If you haven't seen it, it's a very, very good goal. Sort of slaloming inside and tucking it away. And Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who we all know is finished, of course. A little nudge in the ribs of those who said he wasn't good enough, because he still seems to be scoring goals. He wrapped it up with 2 minutes to go. And United safely through in the end. Is this a competition you think they should now be one of the favourites to win? Because they're probably one of the biggest names left in it.
They'll certainly be up there, and the amount of money they've spent on their squad, the calibre of some of the players they've got, and the manager they've got in charge, there's no reason they shouldn't be able to win it. I would guess that Jose Mourinho has mixed feelings about this competition. Part of him wants to go out and smash every single team in it because he probably thinks they're so beneath him and Manchester United, and I think another part of him thinks, oh God, why have I got to be in this competition? This is dragging down our league campaign and making us travel all over the place. So I expect there'll be a sort of mix and match approach again, depending on the draw. They'll be glad to be rid of the competition until February of next year. But there were some embarrassing moments for Man United in this group stage. The away performance at Feyenoord just wasn't good enough. The Fenerbahce result as well. These are not results that you expect Manchester United to go through. And now I know, obviously, they are going through a period of transition. And obviously, as Arsenal fans, we know what that's like when we move stadium. They're doing it with a huge change in the sense of the manager and still trying to find that stability. But the amount of money they've invested in the club and the quality of players they've got there, they should have really had enough to finish top of this group. So they'll be pleased they're through because they saved any blushes there. But I'm not sure if they really want to be in the competition.
No, they do play like a side that probably don't want to be in it. It's quite odd. But one bonus for tonight's performance, as well as Mkhitaryan, was the return from injury of Eric Bailly, who is back in the side tonight.
It's been a big loss for them.
Yeah, he seemed to sort of steady the ship a bit. Has to be said, Marcus Rojo and Phil Jones have been quite a good partnership, but I've got to be honest, I wouldn't want to be building my centre-back partnership on Marcus Rojo myself, personally, but not with that hair either. So that's a really dodgy Barnet, I'm not sure about that at all. Fenerbahce, of course, go through as winners of Group A. Along with Manchester United, they got the result away in Feyenoord tonight. They are now named the Accumulator Crushers. Cheers for that, Fenerbahce. So they qualify with Manchester United. In Group B, Apoel have gone through as group winners, maybe somewhat surprisingly, from Olympiacos, who have sneaked through on the head-to-head ratio over Young Boys of Bern. Who go out at this stage? Well, I say go out. We have to look at the best third place side in the standings as a qualifier. But Olympiacos go through in second. I do want to pick up on Group C.
Sure.
St Etienne. I'm genuinely shocked by this. I got home from work and saw that Anderlecht were 2-0 up and cruising. I thought, yeah, classic St Etienne. All that hard work last week against Mainz and back to normal ways. And then they didn't only go and score once, they scored twice, and they scored 3 times. Kevin Monepake with the what proved to be the winning goal after Alex Sutherland had scored twice in 5 minutes. Really surprising result. They're a grand old name of French football and indeed the Europa League, or UEFA Cup as it is. St Etienne, could they go deep in this competition, do you think, just purely on organisation alone?
If they only had to play at home, then yes. And now
True.
I know that goes against everything you just said, because obviously they came back and scored 3 goals, but I would never put Saint Etienne money on them. Scoring more than 1 goal for a start and scoring away from home. Now, obviously, I don't watch as much French football as you, Chris, but I look at results and it's just not something you really see them do. So unless they can pull off what would be a miracle for them, for another, I can't remember, work out how many games it'd be, 2, 4, 6, 8, like 9, 10 games. I can't see it personally. Sorry to disappoint you.
No, I concur. Yes, as much as I like an old-fashioned name, I tend to agree.
The shock for me from this group is the Mainz. Yeah. I think they'll be disappointed that they didn't go through.
I agree, yeah, because I think they would have looked at this and thought, well, they're probably better than St Etienne and Anderlecht on their given day, and they didn't even qualify, let alone finish above them. So, and poor old Kabbalah, spare fault for them, played 6, lost 6. Unlike Dynamo Zagreb in the Champions League, they did manage to score some goals. They scored 5 goals, but they also conceded 14, so that's not going to work out well. So they are goners. Ross, let's bring you back in for Group D, because we were all gripped by the story of plucky old Dundalk. They have exited the competition tonight, but there was a brief bit of hope. They were 1-1 with Maccabi Tel Aviv at one point, but sadly the dream has died, and Zenit and AZ Alkmaar are the qualifiers. Just a sort of quick word for Dundalk, really. I mean, okay, they're going out, but they will be one of the stories on the highlights video of this year's package, won't they?
Absolutely, and I think 4 points is still quite surprising, and realistically speaking, more than they would have expected in terms of points return, especially from this group. Some very good teams in it. Some great memories for those Dundalk fans. I think I'll always know the name Dundalk now. It's what Europa League's brilliant at. I know it gets denigrated by a lot of fans, especially Champions League fans, but yeah, I mean these are the reasons that the Europa League is so fantastic sometimes, because you get to see teams like Dundalk get the win that they got and get the draw they got and be right in it until the very end. So fantastic story. I think they've well and truly stamped their mark on this competition, and like I say, they're a club that I'll never forget now.
Yeah, same, and well done to them and what they have achieved in this season's competition, even though they do go out. Group E, just quickly touch on Roma, John. They qualify top of the group, 12 points. They've got to be a side again that have got to be looking at this competition as winnable, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely, and they approach the competition in the right way. They've been a bit lax in Europe in the past few seasons, but other than the draw at home, I think it was to Austria Wien, they basically got their wins at home, got the draws away, which they knew would secure them the group, and most likely top of it as well. Just very professional. Again, the surprise team from this was a team I'd never heard of before, FC Astra Gerigi, I think. I've got no idea how to pronounce that, so I'm terribly sorry. Yeah, something like that. Romanian side who, I hadn't heard a lot about, but looked quite decent in the games I saw. And for them to progress through, they'll be very pleased with that.
I think isn't it Astra Giorgio?
Georgia, there we go. That sounds much better.
Can we just call them Vauxhall?
FC Astra, there we go.
Yeah, there we go. Do you know they're actually 9th in the Romanian League One table? Yeah, so there you go. Yeah, some famous old names in that league, but Steaua Bucharest top. But yeah, they've got another 6 clubs above them, and they're actually technically outside of the playoff division. And they have won 3 of the last 5, but before then they were really struggling. So, yeah, quite the achievement for them. But they will go out, and as we say, Roma are probably one of the sides that teams will want to avoid drawing, as will be Bilbao, who've qualified top from Group F, along with Belgian side Genk. Rapid Vienna.
Genk can finish top.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Sorry, I apologise.
Yeah.
Sassuolo and Genk called off due to fog this evening. The game is going to be replayed at time of recording this tomorrow, so Friday the 9th of December. And as you rightly say, I think
it's a morning kickoff, like 11:30 or something like that as well.
Oh, is it? There you go. So we will know the result then fairly soon. So if Genk win that away in Sas,
they only need a point actually to top the group.
Oh yes, you're right on head-to-head. You're absolutely right. So we know Genk and Athletic will go through. We just don't know who goes through with what and what seeding, etc. But Sas going out, boo. But I think overall they'll be kind of not that bothered. I think they want to focus on Serie A now.
They will be absolutely over the moon because they've had a wretched European campaign, and the injuries they've picked up in it haven't helped at all, and they just haven't got the squad to do both. So yeah, they will be more than pleased to see the back of the Europa League.
Yeah, no surprise their form was picked up since they knew that they couldn't qualify in this competition in Serie A. So, yes, keep doing the good things, Sas. Group G, Ross. Good to see a club like Ajax. Okay, not at Europe's top table, but they finished top of this group, 14 points, qualifying with Celta Vigo, who also got the point they needed tonight to go through as well. Nice to see a club like Ajax back at one of Europe's sort of top table competitions latter stages.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we had gone through tonight, I would have loved to have drawn Ajax. I think they would have been a great team to have drawn. They are a big name still, much like Inter Milan. They might not be doing brilliantly on the world stage right now, but that doesn't mean that the occasion to play a team like Ajax is lost on teams. So I would have loved to have drawn them if we'd gone through, and it's nice to see them being successful. Don't think they're going to win it by any means, but it's certainly nice to see them through to the next round.
Yes, yeah, they are qualified, as I say, with Vigo, so that's decent, I think, for a club like Celta, who on their day are quite entertaining. I must admit, I'm not always the biggest fan of Spanish sides in Europe in particular, but they're quite an entertaining side to watch. So good on them. Shakhtar Donetsk. Touched quickly on these results, Jarman, on this group. Played 6, won 6, scored 21, conceded just 5, 18 points. So basically maximum points from this group.
A team that perhaps should be in the Champions League.
Just going to say the same thing. They're not going to be one that somebody's going to fancy drawing, are they? In this
No,
next
not
round?
at all.
They've I don't know. I haven't looked at their squad for a while, which I'm just going to peek at. But I wonder how many Brazilians they've got.
I'd imagine it's still full of Brazilians.
Not as many as you'd think, but there are still 5, 6 there. So yeah, they got Ismaili, the defender. They got Bernard. Remember him? He's still there.
Yes.
They got Fred. Good old Fred.
Good old Fred, yeah.
His uncle Bob isn't available at the moment, but Fred's in. Dentinho they've got Tyson, who I think was linked with big moves to Europe last year. Wellington Nem, who made his name at Fluminense, I think, in Brazil.
Yes, yeah.
And Marlos, who's a little bit like Marlon, but with an S instead of an N. And Eduardo Silva is still there, 33 years of age, still going strong, along with Facundo Ferreira. Didn't he go to Newcastle? From memory, Ross will know this.
Oh, God.
Who?
Facundo Ferreira. Didn't he go to Newcastle? Yes, he did. 2014, he went to Newcastle, never played a minute for them. So I guess that didn't really work out very well. Argentinian striker, 25. Yeah, he came to Newcastle in 2014 and never kicked a ball. So that didn't work out very well. There's a trivia question for you. Moving on to the next group then, we've got Schalke and Krasnodar qualifying just ahead of Salzburg despite the same points. We'll come on to best, third place and all that in a minute. Schalke going through, again, Ross, kind of a big name side, certainly a side that people will look at and go, yes, we would not like to draw them. Do you think they could be maybe a dark horse? They're starting to get the form back in Bundesliga. Do you think they're a side to keep an eye on?
Yeah, I was just trying to plan who I think could win the Europa League from the teams that I know that have now gone through, and I think Schalke are definitely in contention for it. They'd need a bit of luck. They'd need some kind draws, but I don't see any reason why they couldn't go at least to the semi-final stage.
I totally agree with that. Looking at their form, they've had, 4 out of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's not bad, actually. They've had a pretty decent run of form recently. So other than the defeats, they lost to Leipzig last weekend, which is no.
Everyone loses
disgrace.
to Leipzig.
I was going to say it's no disgrace at the moment, is it? And I think it was to a dodgy penalty as well, from memory, in that game. So Marcus Mine still seemed to be getting Schalke, or getting his tune out of Schalke anyway.
Oh yes, that was the dive, wasn't it? Sorry, I just remembered. Yeah, it was the blatant dive you apologised for afterwards.
Yes, that's the Badger. Didn't give the points back though, did he, the bugger? Group J for John, Fiorentina, safely through, playing in a rather fetching sort of off melon coloured kit tonight. I wasn't really sure I like that. Doesn't seem right with Fiorentina not playing in purple. But they qualify with PAOK Salonika in Group J. Fiorentina, again, is there a little bit of a touch of the sass about them? Not literally, but in Sassuolo type of situation, where is their squad big enough to sustain a serious challenge in this competition?
It depends. They've got a problem. Well, Paulo Sousa might be losing his job because he, perhaps correctly, perhaps not, depends on your opinion on it, came out and said the club doesn't have any ambition. Which doesn't sound great because obviously their superstar player, whose name's completely escaped, Bernardeschi, there we go, basically saying that the club will not match his ambition and his talent, and that eventually he'll just leave and the club will be nowhere yet again. Whereas if they invested money and brought in more players, and that kind of thing. They can keep him, and they can build the team around him, and they can go on and win trophies and yada 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 and that kind of thing. So there's some tension there. Their their upturn in form in the league has been down to Ilicic finally scoring boots, and Kalinic as well, and obviously Bernadeschi coming back into the team after his injury. So if they're fit at the time when the games come around, then I think they've got a great chance, because they're a very good team, capable of scoring a lot of goals and defensively well drilled. But again, they haven't got as big of a issue as SAS have, but their squad could get too stretched for it.
Yeah, agreed. If I had a lot of money, and I fancied buying an Italian club, they'd be the first club I'd go to, because I don't know, you get the impression, you look at it and you think everything's there for them to be a massive club. And you think back to the days when they had Batistuta and Chiesa and Rui Costa, and surely there's a gold mine there if somebody puts the money in, or indeed if they accept it. But we shall see how they get on in the latest stages. Group K, obviously we've covered the Southampton game. Ross, do you think it's would it be fair to say that the two sides that we all expected to qualify have not, is the biggest surprise of this group? Because Sparta Prague, really impressive. 4 wins in their 6 games, only 2 defeats. And obviously Hapoel Beersheva, you saw them at first hand tonight. Are you surprised how good Sparta Prague are? And what did you make of the Israeli side tonight, taking your Saints hat off for a second?
Well, we beat Sparta Prague 3-0 in the first game. So I am surprised to see them win the group, because they were awful when we first played them. They weren't brilliant the second time we played them either. They just got the job done. They just got their goal and then they just saw it out. Beersheva, on the strength of what I saw tonight, doesn't overly surprise me. I think tonight was a bit of an odd game because, like I said earlier, neither side really knew what they wanted from it. Beersheva didn't really want to go too far forward in case they conceded, and Southampton didn't want to go too far forward in case they conceded. It all kind of felt like no one really knew what result was best for them. But the defensive structure was very good, and the goal they scored is a decent long range effort. So it's just they just got the job done. That's the thing about it, is they just got the job done. They knew what they needed and they went out and got it, even when they were down against Inter Milan and we thought they were dead and buried. They still just came back. They still just went, no, we need a point here, we need a win here, whatever it was, and they just kept going and they ground it out. And maybe it's they just have more European experience. They're clubs that regularly get into this competition because of their domestic leagues and the coefficients, etc. So I don't see any reason they can't do some damage to another team in this competition. I don't think they're going to go very far in it. And the group, the way the group's fallen does surprise me, that at least one of them hasn't fallen out. But I think Sparta Prague are the biggest shock, because, like I said, when I first saw them against Southampton on the opening game, they were absolutely awful. So to see them turn it around and finish top is quite a surprise. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right, and certainly not the two sides we expected. John, we'll just move on from Inter, shall we? I mean, they won tonight, and Eder decided to pop up for a couple of good goals, to be fair to him. But
give Pioli time; it's fine. We'll be all right eventually.
It was one of those games where, like, even the 2 goals they scored, it was almost like embarrassing celebrations. Like, oh god, yeah, can we just not play this game anymore?
Yeah.
I noticed the Sprite kit was not in full effect tonight either. It's like they just went, you know what, bollocks to it. We just don't want to know anymore. Let's just go home and forget all about this horrible campaign. But bigger fish to fry. They've actually been linked with the man who got the winner. The goal for Beersheva at Southampton tonight, Maro Barbazaglo. Apparently, Inter are having a look at him. He's very highly rated, apparently. So Israeli, I think he's an international now, from memory. So he is 28 though. So you would think his better years are behind him, but we'll keep an eye on that one. So those 2 clubs going through from that group, and the final group, Group L. It's nuts, isn't it? We have probably a surprising group winner, Osmanlispor of Turkey. Have won the group 6 from their 6 play, 3 wins, a draw, and 2 losses. So that means they go through on the 10 points from Villarreal, who I'll touch on briefly in a second. I'll be honest, both of you, had either of you heard of Osmanlispor other than just hearing the name?
Nope.
I hadn't.
I'd heard the name. I didn't know much about them outside that, but I'd heard the name.
Yeah, the name as far as it went with me, I must confess. They beat Zurich by 2-0 tonight. I'm just having a little peek at their squad. There isn't any names that jump off the page that I've heard of. I've got to be actually no, there is one. Pierre Webbo plays
Yep.
plays for them, and also Pape and Dai, who is formerly of a team in Norway, I think.
And
Yes.
Adam Marr. I know Adam Marr
Adam
from
Marr, yes.
from Holland. What was the Ajax?
Ajax, or was it PSV?
Or
I think it's
PSV.
PSV. Yeah. Yes, PSV. He was at AZ Alkmaar, then to PSV. Yeah. And also, and here's one I really should know of, if it's the same one I'm thinking of. Yes, Czech Diabate.
Oh, yes.
Formerly of Bordeaux is also on the books. He was on the bench tonight. So, yeah, there we go. So after all that, we did know a few players, but I have to confess I didn't expect them to win this group. So fair play to them. Have either of you seen the Villarreal winner from tonight?
I have not. No.
No.
I would strongly recommend you look it up. It's scored by Manuel Trigueros, 88th minute. Do you remember Cantona's chip against Sunderland all those years ago?
Yes.
Very much like that, but it just
Ooh.
kisses the bar and goes in. But to do that at the 88th minute when the game is poised at 1-1 takes a lot of balls and a lot of ability, and it's a wonderful chip just outside the penalty area. So yes, if you haven't seen it, do look it up. In fact, I'll set you a challenge. You need to look that up before the end of the show. Get on your Twitters, boys and girls. Okay, so before you look up that goal, John, would you like to give us the complicated procedure as to who goes through and who doesn't go through and who comes into the Champions League and all that jazz?
Okay, so the draw for the Europa League next round is also on Monday. It follows the Champions League draw, also in Lyon. So you have seeded teams will be drawn against the unseeded teams. So the seeded teams are Ajax, Apoel, Besiktas dropping in from the Champions League, Fenerbahce, Fiorentina, Copenhagen and Lyon both dropping in from the Champions League. Osman-Lispor, Roma, Schalke, Shakhtar Donetsk, Sparta Prague, Saint-Etienne, Tottenham dropping in from the Champions League, and Zenit. The unseeded teams are Anderlecht, Astra, AZ Alkmaar, Celta Vigo, Ghent, Hapoel Beersheva, Krasnodar, Legia Warsaw, Ludogorets, both those sides dropping in from the Champions League. Manchester United, Mönchengladbach also dropping in from the Champions League. Olympiacos, PAOK, Rostov dropping in from the Champions League, and Villarreal. Athletic Club and Genk, it is to be decided because of the reschedule of the Genk Sassuolo game. So Genk, if they get a point, they will finish top of the group and be one of the seeded sides. Otherwise, they will be unseeded, and Bilbao will be in the seeded pot. And that is it. So yeah, other than that, it's just a normal straight draw. Again, same rules. You cannot be drawn against the team from a group that you have shared, or from against a team from the same association as yours. So no German teams playing Germans, so on and so forth.
It's all going off then. It's all going off. Ross, you've seen the goal. What do you think?
It's very good. I'm more surprised by the celebration because he runs away like it's 5-0 rather than 2-1 in the 88th minute.
Doesn't he? Yeah.
It's just so casual the way he's just run off camera, but it's a lovely goal. I don't remember the one you just referenced because I don't think I was into football at that point. But that one is a beaut.
I do forget. Roger, I'm a younger vintage than myself.
I'm just a wee cherub.
We are just old. Cantona versus Sunderland. John, was it 96? I want to say ish.
Oh, that is bang on the Cantona goal, pretty much, isn't it?
Yeah,
he's not quite as cool as how he does it, but yeah.
No, it doesn't have the collar up, but yeah, I think it was in '96. Cantona got the goal. I do remember he chipped. The goalkeeper was called Lionel Perez, and here's a reference for you, Ross. Lionel Perez, who looked a lot like Brian Pillman back in the day. So for all you wrestling fans, look that one up. He's a dead ringer. It's quite amusing. But yes, I shall probably tweet that goal from our podcast account shortly for our goal of the night. So if you want to watch that, then
I think Cantona's celebration for the goal is probably more famous than the goal itself, actually.
That's true. Yeah, just the turn round and sort of just go, yeah, and what kind of thing. Very Henri, wasn't it? Similar style, French Gallic style, but yeah. Okay, good. Right. Before we wrap up the final Satchel of the group stage, then we have had just the one question come in, so it'd be rude of us not to answer that. Of course, comes from Michael Filetti. He wants to ask, what ideal matchups would you like to see in the Champions League? And he puts no bias, of course. I believe Michael is an Arsenal fan, so it's a good question to finish on, I think. So. Go on then, you two. Who would you fancy seeing against whom? Are there any sort of games that realistically could happen that you quite fancy seeing in either competition?
Ooh, I'm just looking through now at the who can play who section. Give me a second. We haven't done our picks for the Europa League winners either, by the way.
Oh, we will do that to finish, I promise.
If I had to pick one, I would say Osman Lispor versus Celta.
Oh, you've gone full hipster there, haven't you? My goodness me. Any reasons behind this?
Because they've both done better than I thought they would. And I think it would be a good acid test for both of them to see how serious they are for the knockout stages.
And that is why we have Ross on this show, you see, listeners, because he makes me and John look utterly just budget. John, can you outdo that? Because I can't.
Not for hipster. I would be very entertained by... Now, it's depending on PSG sorting themselves out, but... If they sorted themselves out, I'd like to see them play Dortmund, because I could imagine that being something ridiculous like 14-all over 2 legs, because they're both capable of scoring ridiculous amount of goals.
If PSG defend like they did against Ludogorets, it will be 26-all, especially with Dortmund the way that they were in Legia.
I think that would be a good one. And also, as kind of the sadist in me. Benfica Juventus, most people will probably be bored out of their skull watching it, but it would just be two teams defending brilliantly and kicking lumps out of each other all game. I'd really enjoy that.
Yes, tactical. I'll tell you the ones, I don't even know if this one's possible, but if it is possible, Rome and Lyon would be lovely. I think it's possible. No, it isn't, because Roma have won the group.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that poos that. Okay, Roma St Etienne then. Can we have that?
No, you can't have that either.
Oh, for goodness sake. Okay. Oh, God. Okay, who can Roma play?
Roma can play Man United.
Oh, yeah, but we've had that recently, haven't we?
They could also play Gladbach.
That would be nice. Yeah, I'd like that one.
I probably wouldn't enjoy it, but it would be an entertaining game.
I was going to say, I imagine there'd be goals in that, so we'll have that one. As far as the Champions League goes, Monaco-Sevilla would be enjoyable, I think, because you've got the Sampaoli effect, the Jardim effect. Both play quite open, attractive football at times. Monaco are better at home than away. Same with Sevilla. Something's got to give, and it would be one of those games that you probably wouldn't look at on paper and go, "Oh, that's one for the for the enjoyment." But I have a feeling that would be quite a good game. So that's probably the one I would go with. Other than that, I suppose you could go maybe with Atletico Madrid's style against somebody with a really outlandish attacking style, probably like Monaco, to be fair, or maybe PSG Atletico. Would that be clash of cultures, maybe clash of styles?
Leicester against Bayern Munich would be interesting.
Oh yes, I feel for Leicester though, because they're going to draw somebody really bad. Don't you just it's going to be a really underwhelming draw now.
Yeah, so. I hope they get, because I know a lot of their fans, they really want a big team, so I hope they do snag a Bayern Munich or Real Madrid, because that's the draw they want. I think they're less fussed about how far they get and just get as big a name as possible.
Agreed. Yeah, we'll have to watch the draw and see if any of our predictions have come true, and see how they get on.
Although Leicester City sitting on the counter against Bayern Munich team pushing forward, you never know.
You never know. I'd love to see a Porto Benfica game at some point as well. If we could get that in the quarterfinals, that'd be fun. Because we haven't seen one of those for a number of years. So, okay, righty-ho then. So that's good. So we'll finish with our kind of predictions then. So, Ross, do you have a team that you think is likely, or that you think will win either the Champions League or Europa League, or both? Do you have any picks for either or?
I'm going to stick with doing two. So the first one was the Champions League, and I've gone for Arsenal and Barcelona. For the Europa League, I would say Donetsk would be a quote-unquote dark horse for it, but they've been very impressive in the group stage, and I think it's about time they ended up winning something like this. But other than that, I'm slightly biased, but I'm going to say Leon, depending on which Leon turn up in the knockout stages.
Yeah, and John could probably say Gladbach for the very same reasons. I hope you're right, because it's about time Leon did something in Europe. So, and I think they've probably got more chance than St Etienne. John, same question. Who do you fancy for both?
I'm gonna go with a crazy conspiracy theory and say that Manchester United really need to win a trophy. And do you remember when Mourinho turned up at Chelsea and he won the what was it, Carling Cup at the time, the League Cup,
sadly.
and
yeah.
Really galvanised that team and gave them that mentality. I think Man United are missing that, and maybe, just maybe, he uses this competition to try and get them going again. And also, it's a bit of an easier way into the Champions League because I'm not sure they're going to do it in the Premier League, get a spot. So I'm going to go for Man United for the Champions League. And that's a boring pick, but I just think Barcelona's front three is so good that even if the rest of the team aren't playing, if one of them turns it on, they're just good enough to destroy most teams. So I know it's boring, but yeah, I can't see past Barca.
I'm with you with Barca, I have to say. I know, again, I agree with you. I know it's boring. I think Bayern Munich will be a lot better come after Christmas time. I think Ancelotti's got a lot of quite unnecessary stick in Germany so far. You know him as well as I do, John. I think he'll get it right there. And with the winter break, where he's got a chance to implement some new ideas, freshen up some of his players. A lot of that squad played in the Euros. Let's not forget. I think Carlo will get it right. So they would maybe be my two. So Barca or Bayern are probably my two. Again, it is boring, but it is what it is. As far as Europa League, I want to say Roma, but John, you know as well as I do, you just can't ever rely on Roma to do anything that you expect them to do. I'm going to go left field and say Schalke. In this competition. The old Schalke, I would say no chance because they're a little bit like Roma, really. You can never back them to do anything. But I think something's happening under Weinziel, and tactically, I think he could just get it right in the European games, and they've got a lot of pace that I think will catch teams out on the counter attack in this competition. And yeah, I've got a sneaky suspicion they might do all right. Naturally, like Ross, I hope Lyon do really well, but I'll stick with Schalke. So there we go. So obviously we'll see who those teams draw. By all means, if you listeners want to write down our predictions and laugh at us as all of our teams that we predict will win it go crashing out the next stage, then please feel free. And of course, if you've got any feedback for the show, the Satchel's obviously going to take a bit of a break now because we don't have any European football. So me and John get to put our feet up on a Thursday night once again, which is nice. I won't lie, but nevertheless, I'm sure we'll probably do a sort of a Satchel extra before the next stages of the Champions League and Europa League get underway. We won't be doing a podcast to reflect on the draw because, quite frankly, those draws are so boring. But we will, of course, tweet the draws from our podcast account, and we'll probably touch on it briefly in the podcast on Monday, John. I expect, won't we, really? Draw will be made then, so we'll probably have that as our best of the rest roundup for the weekend. So tune in for that. Okay, Ross. Before we leave, are you hyped for 10 in 10 over here in the UK? Is 10 EFL games in 10 days? Are you ready?
Not tonight, I'm not, but I'm sure I will be when it kicks off. Yeah.
It's very true. Starts with Brighton Leeds tomorrow, I believe.
Hopefully tomorrow I like football again, but right now.
Yes, I salute you for coming on tonight because if it had been me, I'd have gone, you know what, I won't bother, thanks.
Yeah, so, I have to admit I did think about it, but at the same time I was here when we won. I didn't want to be here when we lost. You've got to take with the good with the bad, so I didn't want to duck out on you.
Oh, amen. And always a professional. That's why we have you. So thank you for coming on. And of course, thank you, John, as well for coming on back-to-back podcasts. You were doing another podcast before this one, so you've put in the hard time today.
Yeah. That's it. No voice tomorrow. It'll be terrible.
No, just make sure it's edited, and then you can go to bed.
Then I can go to bed.
Then you can have the night off. Our thanks to the team, of course, as usual. I know Drew and Tom are not with us tonight for the Satchels, but they're as big a part of the team as anybody. And of course to Kelly and to Var and to Gaz. not to Gaz, really. He doesn't do much. But yes, thank you to the team. And of course, thank you to you all for tuning in. We appreciate it as usual. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, on SoundCloud, on iTunes, Stitcher, or you can just listen through the website, whichever you fancy. There's plenty more coming up from ourselves. Myself and Ross will be back on Sunday for the English breakfast. Myself and John, we're not sure actually, are we, when we're going to record Monday, because I've got to go to a meeting when we usually record. So podcast might be a bit later than usual this week, but there will be a pod. Don't panic. We'll sort something out. So until then, thank you for this journey down the Champions League and Europa League stages. We know who will make the draw on Monday, so keep tuned to our podcast account for those draws. And we'll speak to you soon. My thanks to John and my thanks to Ross.
Cheers, Chris. Thanks, Ross.
No problems. Thank you very much.
And once Ross has recovered, we'll speak to you again on Sunday. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll speak to you soon.